All right, so you guys ready for part 2? All right, so all right, so let's recap. All right, so in part 1, we met Franklin Herbert Discotheque Jr., right? But only his grandma called him Franklin Herbert. Everybody else called him Disco Jockey, or Disco for short. And he was just a normal kid, goofing around, middle of the night, couldn't sleep, finds his dad's rock and roll room, picks up an electric guitar, and all of a sudden he can play it like he's the world's best electric guitarist. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then, let's see, how did we end? Oh, he woke up, his dad was on the computer, and his dad said, "You won't believe what I did." and then that's where part 1 ended.
No, part 2.
Part 2.
Daddy,
Yeah.
you know how there's spy kids?
Uh-huh.
They're becoming spies?
Mm-hmm.
This is when he becomes a rock and roller, becomes a master rock and roller, and plays at a concert.
We'll see. It's my story.
In part 3.
Davey, watch your head. Okay, so, yes, part 2. So, Disco Jockey is looking at his dad. He's like, "Dad, what? Just tell me." And his dad's like, "You're not going to believe this, Disco, but
Be continued.
in one week, do you know that television show, America's Got Talent? They're going to be coming to our city, and I just signed you up to go on America's Got Talent and show them how good you play the electric guitar." And Disco, he was like, "Dad, are you kidding me? I've never performed in front of anybody. I just learned how to play electric guitar last night." And the dad's like, "No, trust me, son. You are a prodigy. You're the world's greatest rock and roller. You're going to blow them away. They're going to love you." But Disco Jockey, he was like, oh man, like he was excited, but he was anxious and nervous. He didn't know what to think. He was just a little kid. He couldn't even imagine getting up.
Embarrassed?
No, not embarrassed, but it's kind of like a similar feeling. He was kind of just scared because he was a little kid.
Where are your walls?
What? And he'd never gotten up on a stage like that, especially such a big stage with all those people watching him. But he said he'd do it. And so for the next week, he practiced every song that he could possibly think of until he ran out of songs to do on the electric guitar. And then he started thinking, man, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to write my own songs. Since I'm so good, I can just play whatever I want. So he started writing his own rock and roll songs. And he played all the electric guitar for it. And he even made up his own words. And there was one song about his teddy bear.
And his true love.
And his true love. He wrote a song about ninjas and ninja battles. What else? What kind?
Foo Fighters.
He loved the Foo Fighters. So instead of just playing a Foo Fighters song,
Smashing Pumpkins.
he made a song about all of his favorite rock and roll bands, right? And he just loved it. He played electric guitar all week. And his fingers got tough. They got these calluses on him, so he could play electric guitar like without his fingers hurting. And it was just a really cool week. But then the day came for them to go to America's Got Talent. Now, they were filming the show in their city, so they didn't have to drive that far to go and start getting signed up for the show. So he went with his mom and his dad and his brothers and his sisters, because they all wanted to obviously go see him and cheer for him and stuff. They were a little nervous that because he was so little and so new at electric guitar that he might get buzzed and get nervous, or like get up on stage and have a total freak out and just be scared and not be able to go out there or something.
Yeah.
But they all like gave him hugs and encouraged him and helped him have some confidence. So they went and they registered at the front desk and they said, okay, you'll have to come back in 3 hours. So they came back in 3 hours, and then there was all this waiting in these lines. And it was like 8 hours before he even finally got to perform for anybody. Now, normally on these shows, they like have you perform in front of a bunch of other people before they even think about putting you up on the stage, because on the stage or on the celebrity judges, they don't have time to see everybody, like thousands of people come out for these things, and they just don't have time to see everybody. So they only put certain people up on the stage. Usually it's people who they think are going to be really good, or people who they think are going to totally flop, but it'll make for entertaining television, you know?
Yeah.
So...
Oh, Daddy.
Yeah.
You know
Mm-hmm.
how it shows us, like, and you can't go through. Sorry. You know how it shows those little...
Yeah, those little...
Like those.
Yeah, like, oh, you're not good enough, or you need to practice more, maybe next year or something. So when they finally told him that he was going to finally get the chance to play his electric guitar, they told him that he was actually going to be going on the main stage. So his very first performance would be on the stage in front of the celebrity judges, in front of the 4 judges who sit on the panel with the X buttons.
And the gold buzzer.
Yeah, and that too. And there's like thousands of people in the audience. So I'll catch you up on what you missed, okay? So Disco Jockey, he's standing there backstage, and he's got his electric guitar strapped over his shoulder, the same one that he borrowed from his dad's rock and roll man cave. And he's standing next to the host, and there's all these like cameras pointed at him, and the cameras the host, he's like, "Hey, young man, are you ready for this?" He's like, "Yeah, I guess so." And the host was like trying to give him encouragement and ask him funny questions. Oh, and they tried to get a sob story out of him, but guess what he said? He said, "No sob story here. Just a normal kid gonna play my electric guitar and a little song I wrote for the judges." They're like, "Okay, no sob story. We can work with that." So they send him out on the stage. He's just a little kid. And he walks out there to the middle of the stage. He's got his electric guitar. And the judges are like, "Hello, what's your name?" And he says, "My name is Disco Jockey." And they start laughing. And they're like, "What kind of name is Disco Jockey?" He goes, "Oh, well, that's just what everybody calls me. My actual name is Franklin Herbert Discotheque Jr. But they nicknamed me Disco Jockey when I was a kid. But most people just call me Disco." They're like, "Okay, Disco, what are you going to do today?" And he says, "Oh, I'm just going to play the electric guitar for you." And they say, "Oh, how long have you been playing electric guitar?" He said, "Actually, I just picked up the electric guitar for the first time last week." And then everybody starts laughing, because they just assume he's going to be awful if he really just picked up the electric guitar for the first time last week. Like, there's no way it's going to be any good. Plus, he's so little. And they're like, "One last question, Disco. If you were to win the $1 million, what would you do with it?" And with this cute little grin on his face, he like looks up to the left and he looks up to the right and he says, "I don't know, buy a dog?"
Now you say, "Buy my own electric guitar."
He said, "I would buy my own electric guitar because this is my dad's that I borrowed." And they're like, good answer. Well, show us what you can do." So then this like guy, this like stage crew runs out, puts a microphone in front of his face. And he stands there and he takes a deep breath and he looks around at the thousands of people and all the bright, shiny lights and the 4 celebrity judges and the cameras and probably millions of people watching at home. And he puts his head down, puts his hands on the guitar, and he starts playing the song that he wrote, his own words, his own song, with his dad's electric guitar.
Go, Johnny, go.
No, it wasn't Go Johnny Go. It's his own song. Actually, the song was called... No. The song was... No. The song was called...
My True Love's Kiss.
No!
No.
The song was called... The song was called Beaver Teeth on a Penguin's Tail.
That is the...
I know, it sounds weird, beaver's teeth on a penguin's tail, but it was really like a big, like metaphorical analogy for what it's like to be a little kid and, you know, to have to listen to your parents and share with your brothers and that kind of stuff. Anyway, he played so masterfully on the electric guitar. Like, they could not believe his tiny little fingers could move so fast. And play such like magnificent melodies and riffs, and the words were delightful, and like the ladies were in tears, and the audience was up on their feet, and everybody was screaming. It was the greatest rock and roll song anybody had ever heard. And when he finally hit the last chord on the guitar, like, the judges all jumped up on their feet, and everybody was cheering. They could not believe this little kid wrote this rock and roll song that he just picked up.
1 week ago.
That he just picked up a guitar a week ago. It was like amazing. And so all the judges started like singing their praises. They're like, that was the best rock and roll song we ever heard. We feel like we really know you. We feel like you opened up your soul to us, and all that stuff that they say. They said like on point and all the things that AGT judges say. And then his favorite judge, the one who he liked the most, she's looking at him. She says, "You know what? I want to tell you all the things that I absolutely loved about your guitar playing and your rock and roll song, but I think nothing could say it better than this." And then in slow motion, she stood up and she reached out her hand. And in slow motion, she probably did it fast in real life, but this is what everybody saw at home. In slow motion, her hand came down on the golden buzzer.
I told him to say
And it was like poof, and all of a sudden they start playing all this sentimental music, and there's all these like golden confetti leaves falling all over the place. And Disco Jockey, he's just looking around like, what just happened? He could not believe it. And so his mom and his dad and his brothers and his sisters run out from off stage, and they all give him hugs. And then the judge who gave him a golden buzzer, she comes up there and gives him a big hug. Her name is Emily Schwarzkopf.
No, her name is Emily Ramsbottom.
Emily Ramsbottom. And
She's really skinny.
yeah, she's real skinny. And her hair was all weird. She had on way too much makeup. And so he got the golden buzzer. He couldn't believe it. The disco jockey who just picked up an electric guitar a week ago is now the youngest golden buzzer winner of America's Got Talent first round ever. He's a little kid. Use your imagination.
Imagine he's 4. Imagine he's grown up.
So he was so excited. He was going to be going straight to the live shows. The video of him playing that song on America's Got Talent, they put it up on YouTube, and like in the first hour it got like 20 million hits. And then guess what they started calling him?
What?
They started calling him Disco Jockey, the Prince of Rock and Roll.
What's that here?
Because do you know who Elvis Presley is?
Yeah.
Yeah. Buddy, please, I'm trying to tell a story.
When
When he was a famous rock and roller, and they called him the king of rock and roll, right? And so now there was a prince of rock and roll, because he was just this young kid who rocked like nobody had ever heard anybody rock.
What if it was the butler of rock and roll?
Yeah.
The maid of rock and roll.
So, but they still had like a month until the live shows were going to start. And so Disco Jockey, he's like, what am I going to do for the next month while I wait for the live shows? And that's when his dad got an idea. And the dad, he's like, I know exactly what you should do.
Go on a date.
He said, you should,
Part 3.
to be continued in part 3.
Now, part 3. Remember we did to be continued in part 2. Part 2. Part 2.